sing a song. I'm going to try to sing a special. But I'll be honest with you, I cannot sing it with the music. I can't get enough air in my lungs. So I'm going to do it a cappella. And I just pray that you listen to the words. It was written as a secular song, but it's got a very spiritual meaning, especially for this season and this time that we've come to celebrate. And when I'm done, you will much rather hear me preach. So I appreciate you being with us, and I hope this blesses you. It's just been laid upon my heart, and I've sung it the last couple of years at the church that I come from. Pray for me. But enjoy the words and think about the meaning of the song. If tomorrow all the things were gone that I'd worked for all my life, and I've had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my God above to be living here today, for that flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend us still today. For there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Amen. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA, there is pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend us still today. For there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Will you sing it with me? And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend us still today. For there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless the All right, now if you'll turn with me and take your time turning there, it's going to be a little different sermon than you're used to hearing from me as I get my breath. We're going to 2 Chronicles today, chapter 7. And this is a passage that is very familiar to a lot of people. It's a passage that's become very familiar to the churches. It's a passage that's become familiar to our nation over the course of the last 10 or 15 years. But we have a problem with this passage. And the passage, as we turn to it, we look to it, but we're not living by it. And today the message that I have titled is An Opportunity to Change. And today we have an opportunity to change. Tomorrow marks the 240th anniversary of our country's independence. We've changed already. But God has still given us an opportunity to change back. Many people are regularly heard praying for our nation today. The majority of churches today are praying for revival in the church and praying for a revival in this nation and the community. Being a patriot is more than just loving this land that we call the USA. Patriotism is defined by one who has a deep love and one who has a complete support for its country, and it is prepared to defend it at all costs. There are many ways to serve today as a patriot for our country. For some, it may be serving in the military, active duty National Guard or reserves, or standing up and fighting for our country. For some, it may be standing for a democratic society. And for some and all, it should be defending against the enemies of our country, both physical and spiritual, by being a patriot in prayer. I have no apology today for being patriotic. I have no apology today for being an American flag-waving, God-honoring citizen of the United States of America. I believe it is logical to be a patriotic person. I believe it's more than logical. I believe that it is reasonable to be patriotic. And I wholeheartedly believe that it is biblical to be patriotic. There's a preacher named Adrian Rogers that used an example in an illustration, and I want to share that with you. And he was talking about a reporter that was out on the street, and he was doing random question and answer sessions, and he asked an individual, "Sir, do you know what the two biggest problems in America are?" And that individual replied to him, "I don't know and I don't care." And the reporter replied, "Sir, you have both of them." America struggles today with two problems. One is plain ignorance, whether it be intentional or unintentional, by the lack of teaching of the truth of our history and what our country stands for. And the other problem that we have in our country today is an active state of apathy. People today do not know, and people today just seem not to care. There are people today that are living free among us that think they are not supposed to be patriotic. There is a lack of respect for our flag. If you don't believe that, look at any avenue of social media, or just go walk around somewhere where there's a flag flying. There's a lack of respect. History is not taught today regarding the facts of the past, but history is taught today regarding how the individual that seems to be teaching, or the group that is promoting that teaching, wants the people to see what they want to drive for in the future. The world is supposed to be a single world today. A one world today. Not a world that is divided among countries. We are told today that it is unchristian-like to show patriotism to your country. We are told today that sometimes we cannot be Christians and truly love our country. This is the norm. Part of being a patriot to the fullest extent requires us as Christians to love our country, to love our God, and to stand up for it in prayer today. We know that our country has changed. We know that we have struggles. But we also know that we serve a God who's overcome all of it, and already given us the victory. When I say this morning that I love my country, I'm not saying that I hate other countries. When I say this morning, God bless America, I have no desire that the other countries in this world not to see blessings from God. It just means that America, the United States of America, is my homeland. It just means it is the land of my fathers. It's the land of our ancestors. It's the land that belonged to the heroes that gave us the freedom that we enjoy today. This country is our home, and we have a duty to be patriotic. We do. We need to pray, God bless America. We need to say, God bless America. We need to sing, God bless America. We need to mean, God bless America. But most importantly, we need to live a life that shows God is blessing America. If you don't get emotional when this flag flies before you, maybe we need to refer back to the original history of this country and seek patriotism. When you hear our national anthem, if you don't become emotionally moved, seek patriotism and learn about the sacrifices that took place in order for us to have that song today. When we stand at attention and we recite the Pledge of Allegiance to our country and to our flag, if we don't become heartbroken today to say the words, I pledge of allegiance, to say the words, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, we need to seek our level of patriotism. That's what our country was founded on. That's still the pledge that we have today. But are we one nation under God? I think we've already learned that we are not indivisible. And I pray that justice and liberty for all will return to us. We need to return to being a patriot by remembering the pledge to our country. And we need to remember that our country was founded upon the very principles that this Bible lays out for us. In 1776, a group of men claimed independence of the United States of America. It was then that they left the strongholds of Britain and they claimed our independence, giving birth to the democracy that we enjoy today. 240 years ago, 56 men gathered to pledge one another their lives. They gathered to pledge their fortunes, their sacred honor, to sign a document that would cost many of them their life potentially. A document that was written by a young man named Thomas Jefferson. If you're not familiar with the words of this document, which a recent study stated that over 90% of Americans, when read the first paragraph, don't know what document it is. I want to share with you the first two paragraphs of our Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of earth a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God, capital G, entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which would impel them to separation. The second paragraph continues, we hold these two truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and their happiness. It is worth noting as we read this that the 4th of July that we'll be celebrating tomorrow not only remembers the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but it also remembers the death of its author. The third president, Mr. Thomas Jefferson, as well as his friend and the second president of our country, John Adams, both died on the 50th anniversary of July 4th, within an hour and 15 minutes of each other. They both died on the anniversary that they dedicated their life for to this country. It's interesting to note that Thomas Jefferson, who would be the third president and who accomplished many things as a historian, accomplished things as a philosopher, as a teacher, as a public official in his lifetime, he desired as his life memory to be remembered for three things. First, he wanted to be remembered as a writer of the Declaration of Independence. He also wanted to be remembered for writing the statute for the state of Virginia and religious freedom. And you can look back and study on that. And just food for thought, he also founded the University of Virginia. But with this in mind, on the celebration of our country's birthday and the celebration of signing of the Declaration of Independence, today I want to talk about three things in our message. First, I want to discuss the character of the document, the Declaration of Independence. And I want to look at the character of the men who wrote it. Then I want to look about the character of our nation now as we have departed from the heart of this document. And then I want to discuss the character of the solution as God reveals a solution to us in Scripture. The Declaration of Independence has no verses explicitly cited, although it is a very intensely biblical document. Why were there no verses cited within the Declaration of Independence? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever considered why, if we were founded upon biblical standards, why our Declaration of Independence don't have the Bible cited within it? It's because these men worked on the assumption that the Bible stone is the cornerstone for all good. And it was the Bible in those days that was the cornerstone for any just political government system that would ever be established. The Bible had been the cornerstone of all of the humanitarian governmental documents since their separation from Britain. And in their minds, it would be the cornerstone to this very day that we're living. It was a given. It didn't have to be said. The text of the Declaration of Independence is especially built on two very important biblical principles. First, it was built on a principle that men and women are endowed by their Creator with a certain inalienable right. Do you understand what that word inalienable means? That word means that it cannot be taken away from you. It cannot be given away. It cannot be deprived of someone who has been given that right. It is part of the very being of their existence. It is part of who they are, and it is absolutely impossible to strip or to separate somebody from that which has been given to them in an inalienable status. They held that these rights were inalienable to all men. The right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to the pursuit of happiness. Why are these inalienable rights? It's because they understood what the Bible says in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27. They understood that when God looked down upon His creation, and when God decided to make man, He decided to make man and woman in a very special and a very particular way. We're not made in the image of nature. We're not made in the image of ourselves, but rather what? We are made in the image of our God. If you want to throw a theological term in there, it's called the doctrine of Imago Dei. It's made in the image of God. God's image is made in every man, every woman. And because of that, there's an inalienable right that we are provided for in our own Declaration of Independence. We are image bearers. From conception unto death, we as individuals bear the image of our God. All men, all women, from all ages, past and present, bear the image of our God. And we need to be reminded of this too often. Every man, every woman, every child, young and old, the embryo within the mother's womb, the elderly person dying sick in the bed, the person who is lying there barely able to move, eat, or breathe, the homeless man that may be begging on a street corner, the harlot, or the richest of the rich, or the poorest of poor, all bear the image of our God. We are created equal. Our founding fathers and the founding documents remind us that since we bear this image, our rights are inalienable, and they cannot be taken away. We have the right to protect this for ourselves, but we also have an obligation to be patriots and protect it for others. Our founding fathers understood that the British government of the day was stealing from them their inalienable rights. They understood that they were being treated unfairly, as if they were no longer human beings, and they had a responsibility to those that they served, and they had a responsibility to stand up and protect those that had rights within them. To life, this inalienable right. Genesis 9:6 paraphrases, "Whoever sheds a man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image." We bear the image of God, and it is sin for somebody to kill us today. There don't seem to be a question about that. We understand this, but we can't just look at ourselves. Abortion is murder. Euthanasia is murder. And it is an infringement upon an inalienable right that our country was founded upon. We must assume the responsibility to continue to stand against these things. Our founding fathers stood against them, and we have to too. The right to liberty, the statute of being free from oppressive restrictions, the statute of being free from being forced into enslavement, the ability to act and to be responsible for our own actions is something that we must stand up for. Our founding fathers stood up for them. We must too. The pursuit of happiness, we must stand up for it is an inalienable act, as we are made in the image of our God. But we can only do this so long as said happiness does not rob others of their life and their liberty. Our country's got this one wrong today. Everybody's got freedoms except the ones who are being offended. And we have too many standards being shared around. The second principle that our country was founded upon comes out of 1 Peter chapter 2. And it says that the role of the government and that the government's job was to do two things. First, reward those that do good. And second, punish those who do bad. There is a concept called federal headship. And it says that when the higher government abuses their privilege and their role severely, and they no longer serve the biblical mandate for what the government was called and set to do, the lower powers of the government had a responsibility to protect those that were under them. And I'm not standing up here preaching against our government today. I'm not going to do any more history lessons on the founding of this Declaration of Independence. But my goal is for us to see the standards to which our country was founded upon. I also said that we would look at the character of the men who signed it. And quickly, let me share some quotations from you, or to you. George Washington, our first president, his farewell address, he said, "National morality is impossible without religious principles." That is true. It's true today. Benjamin Franklin, who by testimony was probably not a Christian, he even said biblical principles, the principles of the Bible and the principles of the church, although I don't agree with them, are fundamental to a free society. Charles Carroll, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, also a representative from the state of Maryland, said, "Without morals, a republic cannot subsist for any length of time. Those, therefore, who are decrying the Christian religion are undermining the solid foundation of morals, the best security for the duration of free government." How true are all of these? These have become more and more evident in the lives of us today, for we have left this standard. How about another one? John Adams, our second president, wrote, "Our Constitution was made for a moral and a religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other." Why don't it work today? Because we have left our love. As a society, we have left the standards that this country was built upon. We have left the standards as a whole of God's Word. How far have we come? How much farther will God let us go? That's a question that don't have an answer. We've looked at the character of the document of the Declaration of Independence. Maybe we have a better understanding now of the character of the men who stood up and gave us that independence. But let's look at some of the characters of our nation today. And I'm not up here this morning to beat up our nation. I love our nation. It is the best nation. And I'm proud to be in it. But we're going to look at the fruits of the characters of our nation today. We have stripped religion from the view of the public life. We have removed God from our schools. We have removed prayer from our schools. We have even redefined religion as primarily a worship of anything and not a worship of the one true living God. Since 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision, there has been approximately 48 million babies aborted in this country. That is 342 times more people than was killed at the bombing of Hiroshima when we dropped the nuclear bomb. This equates to now approximately 1 out of every 4 pregnancies is resulting in the loss of an inalienable right, the murder of a child, and it is condoned by our country as a whole. Mass shootings, mass murders are on the rise. Terror attacks are rampant. Crimes of violence are rising. Law enforcement cannot even serve and protect our people without fear of retaliation, supported by our government. Pornography, sexual explicit material is everywhere that you look. It seems you can't get away from it. Homosexuality is becoming the norm. It's accepted by our nation, and our nation's standards are allowing it instead of rebuking it as God has told us and commanded us to do. Legislation is, and legislation already has, redefined marriage according to the new national standard, going against the biblical standards that we were founded upon. We do not realize today that when we change the definition of the family, we are changing the entire definition of our society. And when we allow the definition of our society to be changed and the culture of the family to be changed, we're changing the culture of society. And our original culture in our society was founded upon the family being the foundation for it, on top of God's Word. Today, our country has even redefined the genders. And it's not simply redefining in the role of what the roles are between a male and a female, but even by what it means to be male or female, or we're even allowing people to choose which one they want to be. That's the standards that we've come to today. All of these things are not just affecting the world, but these things are directly affecting our churches today in America. Today, churches as a whole are beginning to ordain homosexuals against God's Word. Adultery is rampant. It is seen on the rise among our church people and even in the church leadership throughout our country. We're changing our services from God-led worship services to man-desired entertainment hours that may or may not mention our God's name in the course of that service. Christians are not striving to live every aspect of their lives the way that God has commanded us to, but yet we live one way outside the church and we live a different way inside the church. It's dangerous. It's tearing us down more than we know. Our founding fathers never dreamed that we would have these changes. Our founding fathers didn't have a clue that we would ever leave the standards that this country was built upon. But we have. And we have to remind ourselves of our nation's current state. And it is sad. But then, there's a third and final point today. All hope is not lost. It's not all doom and gloom the way the first 25 minutes has made it seem. Because our Savior is faithful. And our Savior has preserved us words from this Bible that we have heard often over the course of the last 15 years. When the planes hit the towers, all over the news, this verse was plastered. We didn't see the change. I think it's because we didn't wholeheartedly turn to it. We found it for a moment a temporary comfort, and we forgot to turn from our wicked ways. Other events have happened, and this verse has been plastered across the media. We might have sought God for a little bit. We might have prayed, but we have not turned from our wicked ways. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 12 to 22 will be our text today. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said unto him, I have heard thy prayer, and have chosen this place for myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locust to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves, pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. Now mine eyes shall be open, and mine ears attend to the prayer that is made in this place. For now I have chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever, and mine eyes and mine heart shall be there perpetually. As for thee, if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked, and do accordingly to all that I have commanded thee, and shalt observe my statutes and my judgments, then will I establish the throne of thy kingdom, according as I have covenanted with David thy father, saying, There shall not fail thee a man to be ruler in Israel. But if you turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I have set before you, and shall go out and serve other gods, and worship them, then I will pluck them up by the roots out of my land, which I have given them in this house. Which I have sanctified for my name, will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among all nations. And this house which is high shall be astonishment to every one that passes by, so that he shall say, Why hath the Lord done this unto this land, and unto this house? In verse 22, And it shall be answered, because they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods, and worshipped them, and served them. Therefore hath he brought all this evil upon them. Hope is not over. The historical background of this passage is Solomon has just finished building the temple with the people. And they are celebrating and they are sacrificing to the Lord. And this is a time of God receiving glory for them. And it is a time of celebration that God steps in and He tells them, if I will shut up the heavens. Could you imagine that? This great thing is done. The temple has been rebuilt. We're excited. We're blessed with what God's going to do to us. But now all of a sudden God starts talking to us. If I shut up the heavens. If I shut up the heavens, if I command there to be no rain, if I command the locust to devour the land, or if I send pestilence to my people. Solomon's like, wait a second, Lord. Where'd this come from? God's righteous, God's sovereign, God's all-knowing. And He understands the sin nature of people. And He was reminding them of that day that when that time comes, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves, pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, and I will heal their land. Church, God, I think, is shutting the door of heaven this morning. God is not raining down the blessings upon this country that I think He wants to. I think the locust that He referred to is the flesh
and the worldly desires and the sin nature that is running rampant among us. And I don't think that we can look anywhere in the news or anywhere within any form of communication on this earth and not see that there is a pestilence among the people. Today is a day that if my people, Jesus said, called by my name. Today is a day that we need to repent. A couple things in closing about this passage that makes it special. We have left him. He was warning back in the Old Testament in 2 Chronicles that his people had left him. But he still said, if my people. He still owned those people. He had not forgot the people. He had not cast them out. He had not wiped them off of his landing board, so to speak. He still loved and cherished his people. And God still loves us this morning. God still loves this country this morning. We're just run from him. The next thing that we can take out of this verse is my people that are called by my name. And I never paid attention to this before until the other night. I was looking through it again, and something hung me up about this particular portion of this passage. And it hit me. Our God is not a God of numbers, is he? He came to this earth by himself in the form of a baby. And after he lived and he grew, he put together 12 disciples, 12 apostles to reach the world. And he told them to go out and make other disciples. And we know other situations in the Bible where God took very small armies of men, but God worked and God accomplished it. And in the first 25 minutes, I talked about the state of our nation. And it's depressing, is it not? Does it not feel overwhelming? Does it not feel like there's nothing that we can do, that there's too many of them sometimes? God don't say if the nation, he says if my people that are called by my name. If God's church that is called by his name will turn to him, he will heal their land. Right. That's a promise that he's given us. All hope is not lost. All God is asking is that his people, his children, turn to him. That we pray, that we seek his face, and that we turn from our wicked ways. America's not lost. America's not gone. The church has an opportunity to intervene. And if God's people, if God's church that is called by his name will humble ourselves, and we will pray, and we will seek his face, and most importantly, if we will turn from our wicked ways, he promises he will hear us from heaven. And he promises us that he will heal our land. The outcome of an upcoming election in several months is going to do nothing for this country. I don't care who is voting. A complete change of politicians is not going to do anything for this country. The only hope we have is for us today, as the called church, the body of Christ, that are called by his name, will do these four things. Will we humble ourselves? Will we pray? Will we seek his face? And most importantly, will we turn from our wicked ways? He will hear us, and he will hear our land. There's two conclusions in closing. We can do them things. He will forgive their sin, and he will heal their land. But if we don't, if we continue to stand by with a lack of patriotism for what this country was standing upon, if we continue to be gutless for our Lord and Savior, verse 22 will be said of our country eventually in God's time. Because they forsook the Lord God. Because they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. and they laid hold on other gods, and they worshiped them, and they served them. Therefore, he brought the evil upon them. The decision is ours today. As we bow in prayer. Excuse me. If there's anybody among us that don't know Christ as your Savior, if you want to be called my people by Jesus Christ, by God the Father this morning, He came to the earth and He laid His life down on the cross of Calvary for our sins. He made it a free gift that's available to all. If you believe in your heart you God has raised Him from the dead, the Bible says, thou shalt be saved. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. If He's knocking this morning, the altar will be open. For the rest of us, I pray that we search our level of patriotism. I pray that each one of us begin to pray fervently for our country. Pray for our church. Pray for our nation. Because we can make a difference. Hope is not gone. We might have left the standards as a whole, but God has promised us, if His people, which are called by His name, shall humble themselves, shall pray, shall seek His face, and most importantly turn from our wicked ways, He will heal us, hear us, and He will heal us. The altar will be open in just a moment for any other need. If there's anybody that feels led to join our congregation this morning, the altar is open. If there's any sin in any of our lives that we need to deal with and put behind us, the altar is open. May we take this holiday season, Independence Day, the 4th of July, and may we bond as a church and unite together to seek our God and to begin to allow Him to heal our need. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for the day and everything you've given us. Lord, your word has been placed in my life, Lord, and I just pray that you've allowed it to go out, that you'll just take power over it, Lord, that you'll open our hearts and our minds, that you'll just speak to us and allow us to make things right with you as you have spoken. I pray if there be anyone in your house this morning not know you as your Savior, to get that settled before eternity too late. Lord, we love you. Lord, we love this country. And we thank you for it. But as it's already been prayed, more importantly, Lord, we thank you for the ultimate freedom that you give us by allowing your Son to come to this earth, to live and give his life as a sacrifice for the atonement of our sins. Lord, just be with us. Be with us as we go forward. We'll just honor and glorify you in all that we do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.